what's up, YouTube? This is your host, King Geo. Welcome to another day, another night of the King Geo Show. Well, today I want to talk about what makes a marriage successful. As you well know, a lot of marriages nowadays, statistically wise, they end up in divorce. And why do they end up in divorce? There could be a lot of factors, but for me, and this is my opinion, for me, the success of a marriage is communication. There's a lot of communication. You need communication in a marriage. You need communication in a relationship, period. But you need communication. And today's marriage, it's not like the marriage of our parents or our great-grandparents. I have uncles and aunts, especially aunts, who have been married for more than 40 years. I have an aunt who's been married for 50 years. Another one's been married for 60 years to the same man. Okay? My mother's been married to my father for 42 years. And what makes a successful marriage is, in their case, it was different back then in the 40s and 50s, because they got married, the husband worked, the woman stayed at home, which is something that you should do, but that's not where I'm going at if you guys think it that way. But it was just different. You fell in love, really loved that person, he loved you, you loved him. In the Spanish culture, a woman wants to satisfy her man. And I'm talking about in those days. And in those days, the man, his satisfaction towards the woman was to make sure that he was the breadwinner, that he brought home food for the table, money to pay the rent or the mortgage or whatever the case may be. He was the provider. And he made sure that he took care of his kids. You know, nowadays, that does not happen. Nowadays, you see a guy knocks up a girl and he leaves because all he wanted was a sex thing, you know. And a lot of young couples, when they get married because they think they're in love. You know, I love you, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And in reality, they don't even know truthfully what love is. It's just an infatuation, or it's just a sensation that they say they got butterflies in their stomachs. But a successful marriage is communication and getting to know that person. I mean, you don't necessarily have to have everything in common, because that would be, to me, this is me, like I said, in my opinion, that would be boring. You know, having things not in common makes a relationship a little bit more interesting, because then you have things to talk about, points to, you know, look at the other person's point of view. You know, that's what it is. I can tell you my experience. I can tell you why my first marriage didn't work. It's not because of a lack of communication. It was because of what I thought that I could do to a person. And what I say by that is that my first marriage, when I first met my first wife, she was a woman that she lost custody to her 2 children. And that's a red flag, especially in New York. When a mother loses custody of her child, that means that something really bad happened. Because it's kind of hard. This was 20-some odd years ago. It's kind of hard for a mother to lose custody of a child, you know. And so I thought, you know, I asked her why she lose custody. She never really told me, but I found out. But so I thought, I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt. I said, this is where I messed up. I said to myself, I think I can change you to become a better person. He was young, I was young, but I thought that I could change her. I gave her the benefit of the doubt, and there were a lot of red flags even before that. Not just only the kids, but it was, you know, her past was very, 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 wasn't the best past in the world. But I didn't see that because that happened in the past. That didn't happen while I was with her. But the other reason that things didn't work out is because I didn't know her that well. You know, I didn't take the time to get to know her. We both met. I'll tell you the truth. We both met at a shelter. I had a problem with my sister. She threw me at the house. This is my first time being in a shelter. I met her there, and just things progressed from there. But even then, you know, people were telling me, Gio, don't marry her. Gio, don't go out with her. You're doing the wrong thing. You know, and I had other girls go after me, but I just didn't want them. And you know, and I saw beyond what other people didn't see. So I said to myself, I think I can change her. What she did in the past, and that was my mistake. And things just didn't work out. We didn't have nothing in common. Like I said, we don't have to, but we had nothing in common. I'm a very romantic person. She wasn't. I like to spend time with with the person I'm with. She didn't. I like to help people out. She doesn't. It was just total, you know, total opposite. North Pole, South Pole, you know, magneto-wise, everything. It just didn't work out. But I tried. I really did. And when she gave birth to our daughter, she was just, you know, when a mother gives birth to a kid and she grabs her baby, you know, she's very, very excited. She's like, let me see my daughter. Let me hold her and bring her to me. This woman had no feelings, and when I say no feelings at all. She was cold and rigid, and when she saw our daughter, she didn't even want to hold her. She didn't even hold her daughter. You know, I figured she was gonna be like, "Oh, bring my daughter. I want to see her. Because we already knew we didn't know what it was gonna be. So when I saw the coldness in her eyes, I'm like, wow, this is not normal. You know. And then we lived in a shelter, and then when I was telling her, you know, let's go outside, let's go play with our daughter, she didn't want to. She didn't want to do anything. And, you know, one thing led to another. And then when we were in Puerto Rico, we got married in New York. When we went to Puerto Rico to live, you know, she met a guy. And actually she went with this guy the first day she met him. She went with him. And she just said, I'm taking my daughter with me. I said, no, you're not. And not because I didn't want to, it's just because she just met this guy. And my daughter was only 10 months old. And I'm not going to let a man that I don't even know, that she doesn't even know, have my daughter living there, not knowing in his house, not knowing what kind of person he is. I don't know if he's a pedophile. I don't know that. Had she known him, and had she been with him for a while, then I would have said yes, because I know the importance of the mother being in a kid's life as much as I do as a father being in a kid's life. So I know that, and I wasn't going to take that away from her. That's not who I am. That's not the man that I am. But she didn't choose that. She came back a few days later to pick up her clothes. Didn't even ask for her daughter. So to this day, my daughter's 21 years old. She's never met her mother because her mother refuses to meet her own daughter. My daughter have asked her several times to meet her. She says okay, and when it comes time to meet, she backs off. So it is what it is. And then on my second marriage, I decided to do things differently. I told my wife, who's back then my girlfriend, I said, in order for us, you know, if we ever want to have any type of relationship, you know, we're going to have to live together. And I was the type of person that I always believed that you should always get married first before anything, because I wanted to be right with God, you know. There's nothing in the Bible that says that you have to be married first in order for, you know, to have sexual relationship with a person. None of that. This is not the Catholic thing. But that's the way I was. That's what I always believed. But I said, but I said, I know that I'm going against God's will, but I need to be happy, and I need to find out before I commit myself to a lifelong relationship. And I believe, I believe marriage is, to be honest with you, until death do us part. So, so that's what I told her. I said, we need to live together, and if we can live without little bullshit, if you can deal with my stupidity and I can deal with your stupidity, whatever that may be, and then we can get married. And that's the way it was. We were together for 3 years. I popped the question before that, but we were together for 3 years, and then decided, it's time. I can deal with what this is all about, what you have to give. And you at that time I was an alcoholic. And she dealt with me with my alcoholism. That was my only flaw. At that time, But she dealt with it. She supported me through it all. I had my daughter. She took my daughter as her own. She had two boys of her own. I took them as my own. And those were the things that I knew that I had a package deal. That if I wanted the mom, I would have to take the kids, which of course that doesn't bother me. The kids took kin to me. They called me dad real quick. And I understand. At that time I didn't understand why they called me dad so quickly. But as time passed by, I knew why. And my wife and I, we both have a sense of humor. I like to make her laugh. She had a rough childhood, as I did, but I think she had a more rougher than I did, in more sense than one that she wasn't given the love that a child deserves to. And so we had a lot of things in common, and we didn't have a lot of things in common. Her views on a lot of things were very different than mine. Even to this day, we think a lot differently. But she's always smiling. She's always laughing. I mean, she's going through problems right now with her health. My wife, if you ever met my wife is a very small woman. She's 4 feet tall, to be honest with you. I'm 5'9", and she was born with what you call a congenital hip dysplasia, and she's been wheelchair bound for 5 years now. Now that she has sciatic hernia, that's become difficult for her to eat and stuff like that. So that's become stress in itself. But I'm there with her. And that's the important thing in marriage too. Always be there for your husband or for your wife, no matter what. Partners in crime. I'd rather die. That's the way I see her. She's my ride or die. And I love my wife very much. So so we have communication. We don't have that much, and I tell you why, because she gets scared of what I might say, or that I may jump at certain things, and I only jump at certain things because certain things in life are common sense, and that's the thing that my wife doesn't take into consideration. Her life is more locked, so to speak, as where mine is. I try to have my life a little bit more organized. I like to have things organized. I like to have my life organized. I'm a very spontaneous person, so I don't believe in the monotony of life, do the same thing over and over again, except when it comes to work. But in a relationship, I do things differently. I like to spice things up. I like to do things differently. Like I said, the monotony is very boring. And so I do different things with her. That's the one thing that we do have. But when it comes to communication, that's where it lacks, because we have different, way different views in how do you raise a kid and how do you live life. Like I said, I'm more of an organized person as to where she's not. I like to have things in order as to where she does not. And that's where our problem lies. I have a 19-year-old, which I try to teach that, how life is what life is all about. And I'm trying to make him, a young man, a young, respectful young man, which he is very respectful. But my son lacks the ability to take other people's advice. He wants to do things his way, which is okay, but he doesn't want to take advice from nobody because he thinks he knows it all. And when it comes to my wife, she lets him do whatever he wants to do. Now you can do whatever you want to do because you're 19 years old. But when I say to do whatever you want to do, I give you an example. In my house, I had a rule that in order for you to get a car, you had to have your license. And the reason that I did that was because I know how kids are nowadays. They get money, they get a car, they don't want to they want to drive without a license. They want to do things their way because they think they know it all. And they say, you know what? I don't need a license to drive. I can drive whatever I want to. Not knowing that this is a law, not knowing that there's a lot of things behind it. If you have an accident, having a license covers you. As to when you don't have a license, then things become a little bit more complicated. Insurance-wise, if something gets to happen that a person gets injured or even dies, charges for you could be, vehicular manslaughter because you didn't have a license. As if you had a license, it was an accident. It was just an accident. Negligence and all that kind of stuff. So my oldest son took that heat, and he didn't get it. I forced him. He got a license. He got his car. My youngest one, the 19-year-old, he didn't do that. He likes to do things his way. He likes to defy me. And so he went out. He turned 19 years old. He got a couple of. He saved up, and he bought a car behind my back. And I said, that car's not coming in my house because I told you that I don't want you having the car without a license. But he defied me, and I told my wife, I don't want that car in my house because he defied me. I told him what to do and what's the reason. The other reasons too is because it shows responsibility. You want your kids to be responsible. So he bought the car. So he left that. I told him leave it at my daughter's house, and he bought a car for $4,000, which was a waste because to this day he bought this car back in, I think it was June. He hasn't passed his learner's permit yet. He's tried it several times. Today is his day again. Let's wish him luck. And that car's been in our garage for like 5 months now without it being driven. Because the young boy did not listen to his dad and got himself a license. So he's collecting dust. And then he goes out and he buys a car that he knows that the car is a lemon. And he paid $4,000 for that car. We told him, don't buy that car. That car is no good. And I don't say because it's no good because I don't like the car. It's because I know about the car. I know of that car. I know the trouble that car has had. And he went out, he bought himself a lemon. So when he just decides to drive it, he's gonna have problems with it. So that's his lesson learned. Because I told him, he said, I gotta learn on my own. If I lose it, I lose it, but I gotta learn on my own. All right, you want to lose $4,000 because he thinks, that's how kids are. He thinks that because he's working, and then money grows in trees. And because he's still living with us, he doesn't know what saving up or having to pay for something really means. I like to, when I buy stuff, I like to take care of my stuff. I like to make sure that my stuff is clean, that whatever I buy stays in good condition. As to where they live precariously, they don't care. He doesn't care if he doesn't care if this breaks or that breaks, because in his mind, which he's told me several times, I can always buy another one. So you spent $200 on something that you busted your ass off, and you don't care if it breaks because you think you can buy another one. Okay, fine. So that's the way it is. And then when my wife and I speak about that, you know, let them live. You only live once. That's not the way you live. You don't live like that. You don't live precariously. You know, there are ways to live. You can have fun, but so that's where our difference is at. But as far as relationship wise, we still, like I said, we don't communicate that well because she's afraid of what I might say. You know, she still lives in a world of Disney, this and that the world's supposed to be like this is the way love is supposed to be. And I believe in that too, but there comes a time that, you know, I'm like, you know what, I'm 99.9% of the time I'm always joking. But that's 1% that's 1% that I'm serious, you know. And I'm serious when it comes to my house. I'm serious, you know, because it took me so long. I was an alcoholic, you guys know that. I was an alcoholic, and I finally bought a house. We finally bought a house, and I like to take care of my house. I like to clean it. I like to do things to my house. As to where they don't do that. They live, like I said, precariously, and they don't care if it's dirty or not. But it's neither here or there, and that's where we lack. That's where we are totally different. Like I said, she sees life differently than I do. You know, now I see life in a more enlightened way because when my brother passed away last year, and he was 41 years old. That's his prime. And I'm like, I don't want to go out like that. You know, I became an alcoholic. I saw a friend of mine pass away because of alcoholism. And he drank the same as much as I did. And he passed away. You saw him. He was all skinny and all that. And I drank just as much, but I had stopped before he did, like maybe 2 years before he did. And he passed away, and I said to myself, God has a purpose for me. You know, I can't go out like that. So I learned to live, you know, day by day, live like today's my last, because tomorrow's not promised, right? And that's the way I see life. But in that day-to-day life, the way that I see it, I like to do things the right way. So when she wants to communicate, when I say, you know, talk to me, what's wrong with you? You know, what's going on in your head? Because my wife is always thinking about something. It's not a day that passes by that she doesn't think, what's going on? She's afraid of what I might say because I'm very open-minded, and I've lived in the world where I see the world differently than she has. We both come from the ghetto. She comes from the ghetto in Puerto Rico, I come from the ghetto in the Bronx. But I have 10 years advantage of her. And I've seen more of life in the Bronx than she has in her ghetto. And I've seen how cruel people can be. And I see how life can be. And I try to instill that in them, and I try to tell her, you know, this is not the way the world works. People are cruel. People are this. People are that. And that's where we lack at, because she wants to do things in a certain way that is just not the way it's done. It's not the way it's done for me. It's just not the way it's done, period. You know, you can't live life handing your kids everything, because when it comes to the nitty-gritty, they'll never learn how to be independent. They'll never learn how to be on their own if you're giving them everything that they want. Or you say, you know, my son moved out, so he wants to spend as much time with the young one as much as he can. I said, okay, fine, but he's 19 years old. He's got to live his own life, you know. And whatever he does that's wrong, she shields him because she's afraid that he may leave the house too, and she may lose him. And I said, you know, birds do leave the nest, and you have to learn to let go. You know, some of you might say, oh, Gio, that's kind of cruel, but it's not cruel, because the kids have to grow up and they have to learn how to be on their own. You know, you're going to one day die, and if you don't teach kids, if you don't give your kids the surviving tools, they won't survive. The world will eat them alive. That's what I try to do. It's my job as a father to instruct them, to make sure that they learn that you just can't trust everybody. To teach them that be kind to others. But you just can't trust nobody. You know. So that's the thing to a key to a successful relationship is to have that communication. To be able to talk to your husband or your wife, let them know how you feel, what you feel that day, how you feel about them, what you don't like about them, what you do like about them, how that person makes you feel. You know, if you're no longer in love with that person, tell that person, listen, I'm no longer in love with you. I no longer love you. I don't think that this marriage is going to work. That's communication. And as much as he or she pouts, that's the way it is. If that partner, if that husband or that wife feels that way, if my wife ever felt that way and she wants to leave, will it hurt me? Yes. But I'm not going to pout over it because, again, I've learned that life is short. I can't, you know, pout on something that I cannot control. If that's the way she feels, if she feels that she don't want to be with me anymore, I'll say, fine, no problem. You go your way, I go mine. I wish you the best of luck because life is too short. Maybe there's someone out there that's going to make me happy. Maybe someone out there is going to make her happy. I don't know. But I'm not going to sit around and cry about it and say, oh, my wife left me. What am I going to do? So many years. You know, you give so much time of your life. You say, yeah, I gave 10 years or 12 years or 15 years of my life and it's over and done with? Maybe. But take what you can from that and move on to the next phase in your life. Because that's what life is all about. It's phases. So that's the communication, you know. If the person doesn't want to be with you, you just let that person go, or they let you go, and you learn to live with it, and you accept it, and you move on. You know. But if you don't have that communication, you're not gonna go very far with your marriage. Because you lack that communication. You lack that. And you know what? You and I want to see eye to eye, blah 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 blah. But you have to communicate. You have to let your husband and your wife know how you feel. What makes you happy? What makes you sad? When you're happy? When you're sad? When you don't like something? When you do like something? All those things. You have to communicate with your husband and your wife. And if you can communicate, you can do that, you're gonna have a successful relationship. You're gonna have a successful marriage. Now, is it gonna be all peaches and cream? No. Is everything's gonna be happy? No. There's gonna be times when things are gonna get hectic and you're gonna scream and you're gonna shout. As long as you don't get physical, you're all right. You may say things that you don't mean. But at the end of the day, you're kissing each other's eyes and you say, I'm sorry. And you turn the page. But that's the key, in my belief, in a good relationship, in a good marriage, is communication. You know, there are other factors too, but I think that's the most important one. Because being in love, yes. Some people want us to have the same things in common. Everybody's different, you know. So, but if you can do that, you'll be okay. And don't look into your partner's past, because that's not good. You know, when you start doing that, you know, women, just as well as men, or more women, have a tendency to ask a man, with how many women have you slept with? Same thing as a man does. How many men have you slept with? When that's none of our business who she slept with. It's none of my business who my wife slept with before me. I wasn't there. You know, because when that happens, then you tend to judge. If a girl says, well, you know what? I've had sex with one guy. Oh, okay, good. I've had sex with 10 guys. Oh, you a slut. And you tend to look at her, a man tends to look at her differently. And a woman says the same thing about a man, but then she says, well, I can't trust him. You know how many girls he's been with? What if he does the same thing to me? Or why, he's just using me? So it's never wise to ask that because, change the perception of that person. I don't do that. I don't ask because I don't care. But the lack of communication in a relationship, it's what hinders you from moving forward. And if you're open in your relationship with your husband and your wife, you will survive. You will have a good marriage. And if things don't work out, even if you communicate, things don't work out, at least you stay friends. You don't have that hatred to each other. I don't believe that a person should be in a relationship with their husband and wife because of the kids. I don't believe in that. For the simple fact is that when you do that, and you're in a relationship because of your kids, you're trying to make your kids happy, but you're not happy. So how can you make your kids happy if you're not happy? You have to be happy within yourself. Well, if you're happy, everybody's going to be happy. So I would never be in a relationship because of my kids. No, I got to find happiness within myself. I want my kids to be happy. I want to have fun with my kids, but I need to be happy. I can't put on a facade. That's not who I am. But if you communicate with your partner, if you communicate with your husband and your wife, or even your boyfriend, whatever you wanted to call it, you're going to have a successful relationship. You're going to have a successful marriage. Like I said, marriage from the 50s and 60s is not the marriage of the 2000s. Now kids get married just for the hell of it. And then they say, oh my God, I made a big mistake. Yeah, you did, because you didn't take the time to get to know that person. You didn't take the time to see who that person really was. I mean, you can live with a person for 20 years and be like, oh my God, I thought I knew you, when the person did something wrong. You'd be like, oh my God, I thought I didn't see that coming. I didn't know you were like that. Because you didn't take the time. And even when you take the time, sometimes that person hides their past. So take your time to get to know that person. Don't give in to temptation, please. But take your time to get to know that person. Take your time to see if you can laugh at his dumb jokes. If you can withstand a fart. But like I said, communication is very, very, very important. And if you can communicate, you're going to be all right. You really are going to be all right. Without that communication, unfortunately, you're going nowhere. And that's a fact.